Here's a little bit of a different kind of video. So typically on my channel, I like to share things that are my point of view about teaching and the teaching world and stuff like that. But for the last several years, I've been having students come into my room a couple times a week that are from different universities around Philadelphia, and they get to do a couple of things. They get to observe, they get to be a part of small groups to help students, to tutor students. And the idea is to give students that are in college an idea or a glimpse into what it means to actually be a teacher. And over the years, I've had a lot of different kids, students, people come into my room and observe my class. But this last year, I had two students in particular that didn't only just come into my class, but they participated in class trips on their own time, came in when they didn't really need to be there. And so I thought I would ask them to give their insight a little bit into what their experience has been so far. So I asked them 3 questions about their experience of being in my classroom in West Philadelphia during the year, and I wanted them to be able to share that with you here. So no tricky stuff, no fancy stuff, just real rap with Christina and Maggie from St. Joe's University. Here we go. Enjoy.
I think for me, my biggest takeaway, like coming to Boys Latin my first semester, the placement that we're meant to be placed in. Am I speaking loud enough?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. The placement that we're meant to be put in our first semester of our freshman year is supposed to be something that, I want to use the phrase culture shock, but it's supposed to be something that is making you aware of the realities that the students that you will be teaching in are living through. So I think for me, I grew up in a suburban area, middle class, mostly everyone that I knew was white. So this was something that I thought about a lot in where I wanted to be in the future. And I think coming here made me realize that I did want to teach in an urban area. I wanted to feel that need to be somewhere. So my high school teacher, she was an English teacher, and when I was deciding what I wanted to go to college for, I obviously spoke to her a lot because high school English is my content area. And she grew up in Nantucket, which is like a very wealthy area, and she taught out there and then decided to move out towards the Gettysburg area, which is where I'm from. And she talked a lot about how she didn't feel a need to be there. The area that she taught in was kind of like she went there, the kids like knew what they were doing, they kind of taught themselves, and she was just an authority figure that stood in the room. And that's kind of how it was in my high school too. So I knew that that's not what I wanted to be. That's not the setting that I thought that I would kind of feel the most comfortable in or feel the most needed in. So coming here and like seeing Reynolds and how he interacts with his students was definitely very kind of like confirmed everything that I was thinking throughout high school. And I obviously had doubts about education because, you know, people talk about you don't make a lot of money, it's a lot of hard work, and I don't think that's something that I didn't know until I saw it. So I think that coming to Boys Latin, being in an urban setting, just kind of made me realize what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. So.
And then my experience with like kind of how I came to find education is a little different. I originally had wanted to be an elementary school teacher. I thought that first grade was like where I kind of wanted to be until I was a junior in high school, and I started working with some of the freshmen, and I really enjoyed that. I think it's kind of hard when you're in high school to picture yourself teaching high school because you can't really imagine teaching someone who's older than you. So as a junior, I couldn't imagine, teaching 12th graders, but I kind of talked to my English teacher as well, and found that was something I really wanted to do. And I was really set in it. I didn't really have a whole lot of hesitation as far as education goes. Like I said, I had like some wavering in like who I wanted to teach, but I knew that's kind of what I wanted. And then when I was looking at colleges, I was constantly thinking about kind of where I wanted to be as far as like what school systems the schools were working with. So we go to St. Joseph's University, which is in Philadelphia, and they work with the Philadelphia school system. So that was something that I was kind of nervous about coming in. I went to a predominantly white public school in suburban Pennsylvania. There's a little bit more variation in class, but as far as like ethnicity and race, there wasn't a whole lot. So I didn't really have a lot of experience with like the cultural differences between urban areas and suburban areas. And I got to St. Joe's, and I think that they do a really great job of making sure that you're prepared for kind of everything. They recognize that it's a private college, so a lot of students come from private school backgrounds, like Christina did, and it was just a really cool way for me to kind of get experience doing something that I've never done before. That being said, my freshman year field experiences weren't super positive. My first semester field placement told me to switch my major, and that, you know, teaching wasn't worth it, and that it's a thankless job, and that you don't even get any kind of like salary that kind of makes it all worth it. And I kind of ignored that, and then I went to a second school that was a parochial school, which was like fine. My cooperating teacher wasn't super great. I learned a lot about what not to do, but I really loved the kids, which is kind of that driving force through both of those experiences, where I realized that, you know, the teacher wasn't really what I saw myself being in the classroom, but I loved being there. I loved seeing the kids every week. And then coming to Boys Latin, it was really incredible because I got to be in an environment where, you know, my cooperating teacher, Mr. Reynolds, really wanted to work with me, and I got to see other teachers in school and kind of see what teachers who like their job look like, which was really refreshing for me. And I knew I had always had an interest in an all-boys environment. My brothers go to an all-boys school, and I love the brotherhood and also the freedom that kind of allows the guys in the class, which is something that I've just kind of seen through my own family. And so it was really cool to be able to be placed in an all-boys environment and kind of see what that's like, especially as, you know, a woman, and that kind of dynamic between the boys. But overall, it's been really interesting and super beneficial, I think. I think that one of my greatest strengths, I'm from a really big family, so nothing ever goes according to plan ever. Everything is constantly in chaos. So one of my greatest skills, and not only I think it'll kind of show up in the classroom, but just like in general, is kind of like my adaptability to that, where, you know, if something's not working, then I'm like, okay, well, we have to just switch gears and move on to something different. Or, okay, well, like that doesn't work, so I have to scrap that and not do that anymore. And like I said, that's not just a classroom skill for me. That's kind of like something that I see in my everyday life. But I'm really excited to see how that kind of comes to fruition in the classroom. And then a weakness, I think, is definitely, I really like to please. I'm a people pleaser, so I'm very aware that in the classroom that's not really feasible to please everyone, and if you are pleasing everyone, then you're not doing your job correctly. But that's something that I think is definitely gonna get to me in my first couple years.
I think for me, one of my biggest worries when I was coming into education was, what kind of a teacher am I going to be? I'm generally like a very laid back person. I'm just kind of like a chill presence, and I think it was like my first week or so at Boys Latin, Reynolds talked to me about how you kind of have to be the kind of teacher that you are as a person. So if you're a laid back person, you're going to be a laid back teacher, and if you try to put up that front, then they're going to see through it. So I think that hearing that and knowing my own personality, I think that that's going to be a strength that I have. And if I hadn't known that about your personality and your teaching, I think that could have been a huge weakness. So thanks, Reynolds.
I'm here for it.
And then I think weakness-wise, or an area that I can grow, I think that my background at St. Joe's has prepared me well for teaching students with disabilities, whether that's a learning disability or, you know, cognitive disability, whatever that looks like in the classroom. But it's something that I'm definitely worried about in the future if I am at a school that doesn't have a special ed program, or I'm not comfortable working with a special ed teacher. I think that that's something that I can definitely grow on. But like I said, I think St. Joe's does a really good job at integrating the special ed program into, you know, the regular ed classrooms. So the thing that I'm most excited about is like creating my classroom. I'm a very organized person, and I love Pinterest and all of that, you know, girly stuff, but whatever. But I think going off of that, when you have that kind of classroom that promotes like a comfortable area, I'm really excited for like the creative aspect of stuff. So I'm very big on like music and movies and like pop culture stuff. So I think designing lessons that are more creative rather than just like a worksheet that you have to fill out. So like learning like the creative aspects and like seeing how teachers like Reynolds are able to like bring movie references or have like journal entries that are based off of things that they have in their own life rather than just like a really structured curriculum, I think is the thing that I'm most excited about.
If I weren't going to be a teacher, I would have gone to school for political science. I feel really strongly about educational reform just because I think that education solves so many problems in and of itself. And I'm really excited not to like, I really hate the whole like teacher savior complex, but I think that like the idea that you are creating a space and an environment where you can allow students the opportunity to like save themselves or to say like you're helping a student find their way through, you know, reading The Great Gatsby and just like having them be interested in a lesson that you did. Maybe they'll never read The Great Gatsby again and maybe they didn't retain anything about the book, but maybe they felt really smart in your class during third period that one day and maybe that set the tone for the rest of the day, or maybe they got an A in your class and they didn't think that they could, and that just kind of changes the way they view themselves. So I'm really looking forward to just kind of like that student impact of seeing like maybe it's not every student, maybe it's one student a year that, you know, leaves my class and feels as though they can do more, and just seeing how that translates not only through the rest of like their academic career but just the rest of their life, and seeing, you know, my students grow up and get jobs and you know, be successful in what they want to do, because I know that already, I haven't met them yet, but I know that like if I believe in them, like it's going to be so incredible to watch them start to believe in themselves. That's something I'm really excited for.
Anything else you're just thinking of pops in your head?
I think another thing just that's extremely important to mention is like, I think for me, and I don't know if I'm speaking for Maggie as well, but in our classes like at St. Joe's when we're talking about education, a lot of the professors sometimes, because most of them aren't in the classroom anymore, they kind of are, there's a little bit of a disconnect as to what's still going on in schools. So I think that we are able to provide that kind of missing voice for what we're able to see in our fields when we go into our classes at St. Joe's. Like a lot of the times they'll be showing a video on like the newest technology that's available in schools and like all of these cool resources that teachers can use, and we're kind of that grounding voice that's like, well, some of these kids don't even have textbooks. So I think that that's something that's you know, definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, I think that like this has been a huge reality check, not only for us but for the people that we're in classes with, because we always have our hand in the air. I think we never shut up in our classes, but that's because I think that we are out of school right now that we really love, with students that we really love and a teacher that we really love, and getting an experience that is changing the way that we view things. Like, I know if you had asked me senior year of high school, if you had shown me a video of all this amazing technology that you could use in your classroom, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like that's great. I hope I have that in my classroom. And now I view that and I say, wow, like those resources are awesome, but there are resources that, you know, schools don't have. And just that reality check of like, okay, that's awesome that some schools can afford that, but what about the schools that can't? And kind of teaching that the systemic inequality that comes with being in the schools, and how that can be shifted slightly by, you know, your role as a teacher, where, you know, you can't, you know, solve the problem of not having technology, but you as the teacher can become an innovator of, you know, designing a lesson that gets those creative juices flowing, or by utilizing different aspects of your lesson to accomplish the same goals. And I think that definitely pushes you as a teacher to be more innovative, but also gives your students that chance to kind of get some of the lessons and some of the information that students who go to a more privileged school could have, which is really important, I think.
And that's it. Hey, look, if you think that anyone could use this sort of information, please share this video if you know someone that's getting ready to do their practicum or their student teaching, just as a little bit of an insight that's not coming from a veteran teacher, but someone that has fresh eyes on this subject. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. If you have any questions for the girls, I'll be happy to send those off to them so that I can get answers from them as well. And that's it, everyone. Peace.